The Minnesota Vikings looking at Jalen Ramsey? Welcome back to the Onebar and Lupagus show. I am Lupagus. The Minnesota Vikings linked to Jalen Ramsey. We will talk about that here in a second. Before we do, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the vids. We are closing in on 9,000 subscribers. We are just a few hundred away from that mark. So keep on liking and hitting that subscription button. Also, if you need to do a little Viking shopping for some Viking gear, there is some links below in the description. Hit those up. And also hit up Liftbridge Brewing Company for some fantastic, delicious beers that'll get you through this miserable winter that we're having. All right, so news broke later in the day today that a few teams were going to be checking on the availability of Rams cornerback Jalen Ramsey. The Lions, Steelers, Raiders, and our beloved Minnesota Vikings are the four teams expected to check on his availability. Well, before we really get into this, what does that actually mean? Check on his availability. Mr. Quasey's given a call. What would you want in exchange for Jalen Ramsey? Is he available? Can he be had? Let's just look at Jalen Ramsey as a player here quick. He's 28 years old, so he's actually, I guess he's about what I figured he'd be age-wise. Last year's stats, 88 tackles, 4 tackles for a loss, 2 forced fumbles, 2 sacks, and 4 interceptions. Still a very, very productive player. And I was actually surprised to see his number of tackles, his number of tackles for a loss, and his sacks. Just Jalen Ramsey, the name, I think, covered corner. I think interceptions. I don't really think of him as a tackler. But this guy actually had a pretty damn good year last year. When it came to tackling, and let's just see his career. I mean, he's got 452 career tackles. So, I mean, Jalen Ramsey is not afraid to come up and hit somebody or at least drag them to the ground. He will do the dirty work. He is set to make $17 million next season. So that is definitely a concern. So, I mean, the positives. I mean, if you bring this guy in, you immediately have arguably the best cornerback in the league or one of the best. He's going to greatly improve the secondary. He'll be a great teacher of the young corners on this roster, and also going against Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne, TJ Hawkinson. He's going to make all those guys better. Kirk Cousins. I mean, he's going to prove everybody just by being there in practice every single day. And the big negatives of this, his contract and the compensation. We only have about 4 or 5 draft picks right now anyway. Do we really want to sacrifice an early one to get Jalen Ramsey? I mean, selfishly, I don't want my draft day to, not have a pick until round 3 if we do move our first. I'm sure it's going to take a first-round pick to get Jalen Ramsey. At least that, probably something more. If it happened on draft day, that's a different story because then you still have the excitement of the draft. So selfishly, just because I love the draft, I wouldn't want to lose our first-round pick. But bringing in a corner like Jalen Ramsey, a veteran corner, is probably the right move. I don't know if you can just go around one corner and then roll out with 4 young guys next year. I think that could be a recipe for disaster. I'm not saying go and get Jalen Ramsey, but maybe you find a veteran in free agency, someone who's going to be a little bit cheaper. But right now, Jalen Ramsey, is it going to happen? I don't think so. Is it interesting that the Vikings are looking into it? Absolutely. We'll see what happens. I'm going to call this one a very, 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 very long shot. But having Jalen Ramsey in purple is something to think about. There's a Kevin O'Connell connection there, obviously playing together with the Rams the Super Bowl year. So it's not like he's unfamiliar with the head coach. So there is that angle as well. But again, that being said, I think this is definitely a long shot. I think the Vikings have a better chance of getting Trey Lance than they do Jalen Ramsey. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. Number 1, do you want Jalen Ramsey here? Number 2, do you think it has any chance in hell to happen? Hit up those links below, do some shopping, hit up Liftbridge, and keep your skull in your hole.